data. Someone comes to them and says, I'm telling you, it's going to be like the best-selling seltzer. We're putting millions of dollars toward marketing. We have this famous person behind it. And they're like, okay, like, sure. And then they get convinced to get the bigger deal because that's how you get the discounts, and then it never sells. And if you put too much of that stuff in your store, then you don't have the things people want. And Cinco de Mayo, selling out a Mexican beer the day before is probably a bad idea. And we're seeing cancellation. That has happened multiple times. They tried to predict how much they need. They misprojected, and they wanted to have other items they thought were popular that are not. Even the big chains, the 7-Elevens of the world, like, cannot perfectly predict it. I think if we have the data, we would just get better and better and better at predicting. And even then, you're gonna have to weave that in with some gut and knowledge, but it'll be better than it is today.
Jason, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Let's start from the top. Tell me about Bevz.
Yeah, so Bevz is a software platform for liquor stores and convenience stores, perfectly timed as we pass a local liquor and convenience store. And so we're pretty much trying to help the independently operated mom and pops operate and grow their business. And how we do that is we're helping them manage, track, and automate their inventory, and then easily sell their products in store and online. Online being sort of like the key wedge that we've taken, because historically these stores have never been digital, and that's what we do.
Yeah, what kind of products would convenience stores sell online?
All of them. So today a typical convenience store has 5,000 to 10,000 unique SKUs. We help them sell as many of those as they'd like online. They can legally sell all of them online or in store, right? The challenge is iOS and Android don't allow all things, neither do the delivery apps, neither do all payment processors, think like tobacco, CBD, cannabis, but essentially everything. So we have 220,000 items in our library with normalized data. So if you have it in your store, we should be able to enable you to sell it online, is the idea.
That's interesting. So you guys started here in the greater LA area.
We did.
Back in, what was it, 2020?
We worked on it in 2019, but we launched in 2020, January 2020.
Great timing.
For an alcohol business? Honestly, yes.
Right.
It was. Misleadingly good.
Right, and that was what you would call version 0.
I call it version 0. Yes.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about that.
So we launched a convenience store delivery app. Think DoorDash for liquor stores and convenience stores, right? And you launched that in the pandemic. Unsurprisingly, everybody is searching for alcohol, snacks, all that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
And so we put this into stores, and it starts to get pretty big, right? We're doing, I mean, big relatively speaking, but we hit like 1,000 delivery orders a month at one point in the summer of 2020 with minimal marketing. It just seemed like we nailed product market fit, but it was misleading. It was the pandemic really triggered all of that.
Right.
And a lot was going on that was like, the stores were not prepared for that level of volume right off the bat. And we learned a lot by just being in market, but I don't know if we'd be here today if a big moment like a pandemic that caused stores to start to think digitally didn't happen. I don't know if they would be here yet. And so forcing function, but yeah, literally imagine alcohol delivery app was our first version of it.
And there's a few companies that were doing that in LA area at the time too, right?
Oh yeah, so at the time, Drizzly was the market leader. There was a company called Saucy, also out of LA. There's a company called Mini Bar. And really, I think what kind of like tipped the kind of the change was the food delivery app. So it's like, I don't know if you remember back then, it was like, I'd see a bus with a giant DoorDash delivers alcohol poster over all the LA buses, at least in a lot of areas. If you saw in my corner over there, Disney now owns this massive billboard. It was Uber Eats alcohol delivery, right? So it was like they were spending crazy amounts of money on marketing. And there was no way we could keep up. So unsurprisingly, 1,000 orders a month sounded amazing to us.
Right.
But then the stores were going, we're getting a couple orders from you, like we're getting a lot more from DoorDash, Uber. And what really triggered us sort of pivoting, or at least one of the reasons, was we'd get calls all the time asking for help with the other apps all the time. And then we were in a position where we're like, I don't want to help you with Postmates. They're our competitor. But we really always saw the retailer as our customer. So we're like, fine, are you using the Bevz like tablet? And they go, no, Postmates. We're like, okay. And we started to know the other systems really well. We'd help them anyways. And so, even though there were other players, to your point, those faded out pretty quickly, just like we did. And it was really all about DoorDash, Grubhub, Uber Eats.
So what was the moment in time when you're like, we need to pivot? Like, what was the final straw?
The truth is we waited too long. So I think the final straw happened earlier, but if you throw enough money at something, you can keep it alive long enough.
Right.
So I'd say we peaked around June and started to decline, even though we were spending more and more marketing. So when we started to see a shift, like when you're getting more sales, more revenue without spending anymore, that's a good sign. When you start spending more and making less, it was going in the wrong direction. And really the key sign, yes, we were helping them with other apps, but the real key sign was they were making so many mistakes on our delivery app because they didn't know what they had in stock. So they'd mismanaged their inventory. They have 5,000 to 10,000 unique SKUs. They just could not effectively sell online without knowing what they had. So canceling orders all the time, sending wrong items, and asking for help with the other apps. And that was really the sign of us going the solution was wrong. They do not need another delivery app. They need a better way to manage their inventory so that they can sell it online. And that was the trigger. When did that happen? I think the writing was on the wall way sooner than we got to it. It was pretty clear even when we were up and to the right. I'd say summer 2020 is when we really figured it out. But we kind of kept our foot in both lanes for too long, and we didn't really officially pivot until late 2021.
How do you know? I think that's the biggest challenge for teams is they're trying to find, product market fit. They get some traction. They have these other ideas. They're trying to stay focused. But at the same time, they're sometimes you can just sit somewhere too long. Yeah. Really hurt yourself. How do you know?
I don't know if you ever really know. I think it's really hard, and this is what it was for us and a couple other founders I've talked to have the same thing, which is if you're making money off of it, how do you just shut it down? How do you not take, when we're all raising money, we're all taking barely any salaries, if anything, how do you turn away free money? And we were having stores doing some volume, again, only around 1,000, but we had a store doing pretty well. We're making real money. How do you make these really tough decisions when it's hey, if we don't put the development resources, the app's going to stop working in the app store? Are we actually ready to do that? How do you make the decision? I think part of it's gut. I think part of it's making sure you have a set vision and sort of feeling that. Our vision was always around helping the retailer, and it was getting very clear very soon that we were no longer contributing to the mission by having 5 stores make a little bit of extra money selling our delivery app. So I don't know, I think it's so much easier in hindsight, right, to say it was kind of obvious back then. But there was also a lot of differences of opinions on the team at the time. So frankly, I was really much more excited about the future opportunity. And some of my team members were going, no, we shouldn't give up the delivery app. We really need to keep it. I think another piece is what goes to kind of my personal values, honestly, which is that business was completely contingent on consumers buying a lot of alcohol and snacks from stores. That's okay if it's part of the business. I mean, it's okay if it's the full business. But for us, I'll give an example. I won't say this person's name, but we had a customer, so a consumer, buying boxed wine, pack of cigarettes, and Advil 300 times in a year from one store. 300 times, almost every day. If they didn't order every day, it'd be a surprise. Wow. I looked at that and go, this is really sad. I don't want this human to be doing this. It's bad for humanity, but the original business, that was our best customer. Wow. And I hated that. And so another part of me was we're not core to the mission. The writing's on the wall now that these other delivery apps are out that they need help with. And I want to contribute to the store's well-being. And that's when we switched to a subscription model. We have a little bit of rev share, but that was a tricky time back then.
Well, I see this a lot, and with a lot of companies I've worked with too, is that, your original plan doesn't work, but by doing that original plan and being aligned and focused to that, you gain knowledge that other people don't have.
100%.
And I think that's what you guys really did, is that you actually invested this time into this focused market segment and came up with a lot of information. I always like to use the analogy of climbing peaks, and you guys climbed to a peak and had a different perspective than probably a lot of people had, because you actually went in that direction.
Yeah, so my first company was software for dog groomers, and one of the key gaps is I knew very little about owning a dog grooming business. I know what it's like to have a dog that gets groomed, and I thought I was a lot smarter than I was about the industry, and that was a big gap for me. So in this next company, I teamed up with a former or current liquor and convenience store owner, right?
Right.
And still though, as much as he knew and then we really knew about the industry, it was nothing like putting a product in market, letting them use it, seeing it with your own eyes and the pain points. And even for us, a really cool situation that happened for us was I would go into the store and we would watch what happens, right? To see how our product's working, how it's going. What we saw was a whole other revelation, which was I'm there on beer delivery or beer sales day, and all the beer companies show up kind of at the same time because their routes are probably exactly the same. So
Right.
we see Miller Coors, we see Anheuser-Busch, we see Heineken, and they all put on a snow jacket, walk into the walk-in fridge, and they're counting the items. I'm in a walk-in fridge without my snow jacket, unfortunately, and I'm this can't be real. And we're talking to them, and it's every week. They do this every week, and not just in fancy big stores. Almost all of our stores, they're going every week. So outside of the broader, we want to help these stores run their business, I'm going, one, these beer companies aren't going to do this forever. They're not going to go count items every single week forever. It's crazy.
Right.
Two, it's they would want the data if we could capture it. And essentially, we were already starting to try and capture the data because that's what we need to help the stores manage their business. And so in 2020 even, we sort of realized the even bigger vision we have now, which is I pretty much my biggest belief is that at some point, yes, we'll have some revenue from the stores, right, as a true sort of vertical software platform.
Right.
But really, the big play is going to be when we know what's being bought and sold at a hyper-local level across liquor and convenience, and eventually maybe other sectors. We will have data that brands will pay a crazy amount for to understand what's selling, when it's selling, trends, market share, you name it. And same thing. Only way that happened was launching a product, putting it in a store, and going and watching it physically,
Right.
honestly.
And how do you capture that data that they're not being able to capture?
So we're not capturing as much as I'd like. We're working on it.
Right.
But we do it in a few ways. So first is we launched the e-commerce and delivery. So we have integrations and partnerships with DoorDash, Uber, Grubhub. We also build websites for the stores. We do Yelp, Google, Facebook, local listing integration. So off bat, we know what they're doing e-commerce wise, but still today that's less than 5% of their business. So then we started building point of sale integrations. We have a few of those. That's been tedious. We do plan to do more of them. Eventually we plan to either launch or get acquired maybe by a POS system. And then we built a really interesting workaround, because if we know what's selling online, it's only 3%. So
Right.
now we need to know the 97%.
Right.
We built a pretty cool piece of technology. It is a literal box that has a Raspberry Pi, which is a small baby computer basically. We have cellular connectivity in it. We unplug their barcode scanner, we plug it into the box, and we plug the box into the point of sale system. It's basically a workaround to track the data without doing a full point of sale integration. When we do that, we track real-time scans. Every time they scan something, we match it by UPC.
Right.
We have a little ways to go with that because we built it in a literal Tupperware at first. Then we did 3D printing, and then we manufactured 25 of them. They are on their way to America right now.
Okay.
That's going to be tricky, importing anything, but it looks like we'll get them by next week. And then as that scales up, we will order a lot more of them. The last piece that's missing, though, is what comes in. That's the least important to me, frankly, because if we track enough of what's leaving, we can use machine learning, AI, and really have a pretty good predictive analytics of what's in stock and what's happening.
Right.
But the final piece of what I call the three-legged stool would be, do we know what they're buying? Because then it's just math. What do they buy? What do they sell?
Yeah.
In store, online. But yeah, it's been a mix of integrations, partnerships, some
Right.
custom software. It's kind of the beauty and the curse of our industry, right? Which is you can't just go to one chain or one POS like Toast and land the deal.
Right.
It's not going to work.
Well, I find fascinating. You said 5,000 to 10,000 SKUs. Is that what you said?
Oh yeah.
That just seems like unreal to me that these small convenience stores have that many products that they've had or are going to have, or
Yeah.
Is that
Crazy?
That's crazy. And to think that some of these, probably a lot of them, are small business owners and they're trying to track that.
Exactly. So it's, yes, like a gas station might have less, but like a typical, especially like liquor convenience store with a liquor license, 5,000 to 10,000 SKUs. So like the problem when we look at this industry that makes me so angry, but also so excited, and why I'm like dedicating my life to this, is it's exactly that. You have a small business owner who has maybe a clerk or two that works there on any given day. They have no real technology built for them, right? Just like, I think we are seeing a shift right now with vertical software and vertical AI, but like there's no real solutions for them. Maybe a generic POS system, something like that.
Right.
And then compared to any other business, they have so many items, so few of those items, and they're changing all the time. Those like 5 things I just said would make even the most technologically savvy, smart business owner still struggle, right? Because you're gonna sell out of items really fast if you have to have 5,000 to 10,000 SKUs, right? And then new stuff comes out all the time. And where do they start? They don't just automatically get into Target or Bevmo or Total Wine. They start in the liquor convenience store, right? When a new product comes. So it is just this fascinating, messy, and then, may I forget, the regulatory environment. You got alcohol, you have tobacco, you have like actual legal federal and state regulation. So it's so messy, which is why it's taken us longer to do everything we wanted to do. And we've had to raise more money to do all of that. But it's a fascinating, yet lucrative, yet challenging entire business. And seemingly though, recession proof, right? Recession proof, pandemic proof. They stay around, they last forever. And so someone's gonna fix it.
But what I find is really fascinating, going back to like focus on the retailer, is that these small business people probably are buying too much of the things that they don't need, and so now they're spending money and it's just staying there. They're not getting rid of it. And then when like trends come, like all the seltzers and things that are happening now, like there's like 1,000 different products you can buy. They probably don't know what to buy, where they could probably make more money.
No ideas.
That must be a struggle for them. And then everybody that's distributing these products to them too are really caught.
Oh yeah, it's a mess. And so exactly, some stores have been doing this a long time, just like any business. If you've been doing it long enough, you can kind of get a feel you're paying attention. But like generally speaking, we're talking gut feelings of what to buy and what to sell. Some of it's the basics, right? You're gonna have your light beers and your dark beers, you're gonna have your IPAs, you're gonna have your chips and your snacks, but like no, they have no real way to know what's selling. It's why still it's one of our biggest challenges today is building trust fast. And it was really our biggest challenge in the early days. They're so used to being screwed over, because this is exactly what happens. Someone comes to them and says, I'm telling you, it's gonna be like the best selling seltzer. We're gonna like, we're putting millions of dollars toward marketing, or we have this famous person behind it. And they're like, okay, like sure. And then they get convinced to get the bigger deal because that's how you get the discounts, and then it never sells. And if you put too much of that stuff in your store, then you don't have the things people want. An example, like on Cinco de Mayo, selling out a Mexican beer the day before is probably a bad idea. That has happened multiple times with stores where we're seeing cancellation. And we're going, how is that possible after years of running the business? And what happened was they tried to predict how much they need, they misprojected, and they wanted to have other items they thought were popular that are not. And so it is really challenging to predict that stuff. Even the big chains, the 7-Elevens of the world, like cannot perfectly predict it. We do believe, and why I keep just going back, data. I think if we have the data, we will just get better and better and better at predicting. And even then, you're gonna have to weave that in with some gut and knowledge, and we'll see how it plays out. But it'll be better than it is today. Pretty positive.
Well, I think Mexican lager is kind of funny example, because, I mean, unless you're already on the West Coast, SoCal, like Mexican lagers are hot right now. Like that's the new IPA right now. I think everybody's brewing Mexican lagers. How, a liquor store, mom and pop shop may not be onto that right away. And it may come and go where they could have done really well if they knew, right?
No, like seltzers, like you named that example too. Like that was a fascinating time. So we over the years have partnered with brands in different ways. Today it's more of a data monetization play, but in the past it was kind of consulting marketing. And so we worked with Anheuser-Busch when they were doing like different seltzers. And so like they were so late to launch seltzers, Bud Light Hard Seltzer, Michelob Ultra, and they were so late they had to do like funny things. So Michelob Ultra was so late that they decided they're going to go the organic route. So Michelob Ultra organic hard seltzer. Like, we're gonna catch the healthy people. And I'm like, I don't think the healthy people are really going like Michelob Ultra. Oh, it says organic. Like, what even makes it organic? I don't know. And you go, if Anheuser-Busch isn't predicting trends like this, the store definitely isn't.
Oh, yeah.
And then exactly what you think would happen. Too many stores didn't do it, then they over-rotated. They're like, seltzers are just flying off the shelf. You would have stores they'd maybe have 5 to 10 fridges. 1 to 2 were just hard seltzer, and then it didn't sell as well as they thought, and then people wanted specific ones. And like, what they tend to do, which this is what I hate the most for the overall CPG industry and why I'm passionate about what we're trying to do now, is they end up defaulting to the big ones. They go, all right, we're just gonna buy the Anheuser-Busch products.
Right.
Like, we know them, we trust them, they pretty much sell. Anheuser-Busch so much money toward marketing, we're gonna just go with that. And then new, really interesting CPG brands that someone like me, even as a consumer, wants to try at my local store, they stop selling them because they just go, we can't, every brand tells us they're gonna be the next big thing.
Right.
So it's tricky, but interesting.
Well, you've gone through 2 phases, you're going into this new phase. Like, I don't think unless you're a founder and been hunting for product market fit, you probably really don't realize how hard that is. Not only like mentally, business wise, but like personally.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's one thing that is talked about, but maybe not talked about enough. Like, what would you say to founders that are out there that are still hunting it, or founders that are getting into this? Like, how hard is this?
Really hard? No, everyone says that. I think I'll give some sort of personal examples, right? Which is, it's really hard. I think one misleading scenario is like, we only see the articles in the news about the 25-year-old kids who get into Y Combinator and then raise a bunch of money and blow up. We hear the success stories, right? We rarely hear the failure stories. And like, the reality is most of us are not finding product market fit on the, whatever we said, the 0th for me, but 0 first, second try, right? You're hitting an area that either is so competitive or not competitive like us, but there's a reason, because it's really hard to sell to independently operated stores at any sort of margin or contract value that even makes sense. And so it's just really hard. Every time I thought it'd get easier, something pops up, right? And you never have enough people, team members, resources to do anything you want to do. The personal toll, I mean, for me and a lot of founders I know, we have a lot of the same mentality, is like, because of what I just said, you don't have enough resources, there's too much to do. I'm supposed to be the most versatile person at the company, right? I'm the CEO, I'm the founder, I should be able to do most roles. So then I find myself going, there's unlimited work. Like, unlimited work, right? I could work every second of every day, and where do you find that balance? And I'd get caught up in it going like, I'm not doing my part for my team, for the customer, for my investors, if I don't work 100 hours. And then at some point that takes a toll on the personal. From a personal standpoint, I actually went through a divorce in the middle of my startup during our seed fundraise. It was fun. And I don't want to say it's the startup's fault. I think there were a lot of pieces that were not compatible with me and my ex-partner, but like, it didn't help. And when it's not just the time dedication, it's the stress and the anxiety and the turning on and off. I really struggled for a long time, still do, to like go to a family event, even if it's an hour. Obviously I can make an hour to go see my niece. I couldn't turn it off. It's in my dreams, it's in my daytime, it's in everything. And so I think it takes a huge personal toll, and it's all about finding balance, I guess, in everything in life, of where you allocate, where you rely on people, where you just allow things to be a mistake. I don't know. I've not figured it out by any means. I've figured it out a lot better than I have. I have a new partner now who is a better fit for me and the startup lifestyle. And so taking it sort of day by day, but the workload never finishes, and there's a struggle when you're the founder of not doing enough, I think. Yeah.
I mean, there's always something to be done. You're never going to be finished. And try to find a time where you can feel like you can just turn it off for a while. It's hard. And like, I've multi-time founder myself, and I find myself still kind of seasonally being good at that, and then sometimes being bad at that.
Yep.
Or being really good at it for a while, and then literally, I think it was Tuesday this week, I was really bad at it, and I paid the consequence for it. You know what I mean? I think I had a big project I was doing, and it takes a long period of time to do it.
Yeah.
And so I didn't move for like 9 hours.
Yeah.
And I was just heads down on that, nothing distracting me. And then when I got done with it, I was happy, but I was like just done. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like mentally, absolutely fried.
When you say bad at it, what does that mean to you? So that means the like giving up everything in that moment. Like when you say I'm bad at it, you have more experience than me in startups. What does that mean to you?
Being bad at, well, I think separating.
Yeah.
You know, from work, and then I always kind of like think of it as work, and then family, and then personal. And I really like to separate the family and personal, even because like I think I have kids and a wife and other family, but I think I like to kind of think of it, and I do planning around that too personally, around like goals family wise, goals business wise, goals personal. And a lot of times people will blend the family and personal together, but you also need your own time, you know what I mean? And
that's
so I think
one bucket for me right now, and now I'm hearing you say that, and I'm like, how much time do I give myself personally?
Right.
But it's a really good point.
And like I've had coaches where it's like the word "be kind to yourself," and I was like, what does that even mean, be kind to myself? But like like slow down for yourself. And things that work for me really well is meditation. Things that work really, really well is we use this thing called the triage list. We use it for our leadership team, and I teach it to all the leadership teams, but those are the things that we work on in our weekly meeting when things are off course, and to get them back on course, and we have a methodology for that. But the fact that just having that list, so when you wake up at 3 a.m. and you realize you're thinking about something, you just put it on the triage list, and then you're going to come back to that. And you have a weekly meeting to come back to that, and you can turn it off now. Versus if you don't write it down and don't put it somewhere, you put it in the back of your head and you carry that with you. And kind of using an analogy of climbing, I see that with a lot of teams too. Like the issues and problems that they're not dealing with, they're in their head and they're carrying it with them. It's kind of like each one's a rock, and they have it in a sack, and they're going up this mountain to their goals. And by not like exposing those in a good way and trying to solve them together as a team, which most teams are really good at solving things. Their problem is identifying the issues and really getting down to the core issue, but like not addressing those things and having the time and place to do that, which we do annual and our weekly and quarterly. That it makes it so much harder for teams to actually execute. And they're just carrying that weight with them. And so for me, being bad at it, I think it's a behavior, right? Like any good or bad behavior, you have to create habits to have these behaviors. I think you can create behaviors by creating and using the right tools. So from time to time, I can be bad at it.
I think if we were all good at it all the time, then we would be superheroes. So it's not realistic, but I mean, probably one of the biggest challenges I've had, and even continue to, going back to kind of like the resource piece, is like I feel empathy for my team. I know how hard they work, especially like my leadership team, especially my founding team. Right. And I do what you said, except I put too much of it on myself. So I have the idea in the middle of the night, whatever, it goes in my task list. I wake up the next day and I might have a team meeting, and I do a lot better now at engaging the team and making it more collaborative. But for a long time it was, I know my team member is so overwhelmed already. Like, I'm not adding more to their plate. Like, this one's on me. And I really presented more of a front for too long of like, everything's amazing to like the broader team, because I wanted to engage and energize them, right? And go, I'll take the blow of what's negative. And I've heard some philosophies around that, which is like, we're in the dead of winter, it's freezing cold, but I'm acting like I'm warm and everything's great because I'm the leader. But I took that too far to the point where it was burning me out. And then even more than that, because I'll even sit here and go like, I can take some burnout, or a lot of it. I wasn't performing even well enough. It's like some of the things I wasn't even the best fit to be doing, let alone could have been done faster, better, easier together.
Right.
If I was just a little more transparent around, like, we're a startup. Of course there are things that are challenging that are happening. Of course, like, fundraising isn't going to be, I pick up a call and call someone and just raise it one day. So yes, the being bad at it. And I think to your point too, like the personal side has been big for me around meditation, yoga, like journaling in the morning, like making sure I exercise. So easy to be like, I have 4,000 things to do, I'm not going to exercise today. And then you look back and like, you're not mentally healthy if you're not physically healthy, I think.
Yeah.
Why we did sweet greens earlier is like my brain defaults to like quick, easy, healthy.
Right. Yeah. No, I think it's so important to be healthy mentally, physically, to be able to perform at your best at anything in life. Right. And I think there's this grind mindset of founders, and the media loves to play that up, right? And they love to talk about that, but that's actually is one of the fallacies. I found the best CEOs and best leadership teams are healthy. They're healthy mentally, physically. They're healthy as a team working together. Just like the fallacy of like startups are absolutely chaos. And that's not true. The best teams that I've worked with over the last 30 years, the best ones are always the most organized. The most open, the most collaborative, right? Like that's just another fallacy, I think. I know it's been, so I started in big tech early in my career, and there were a lot of pieces I brought to the early stage startup around setting vision, quarterly goals. Like these are were kind of basics in big tech, right? And I brought them to startup, and a couple more startup-y people were like, we're a startup. Like, do we do that kind of stuff? And I'm like, I don't care for a startup or a tiny company. Like, if there's not clear goals that we're working toward, you're going to get thrown with all sorts of stuff. I mean, shiny object syndrome is like huge in startups. There were so many times of different things we could have done differently that was like, that's really interesting. That could make us money. Like, do we turn away money again? And then you have quarterly goals, you have annual goals, you have strategy to get there. And so I play more in frankly, like at heart, I'm more like an ops person, right? I stepped into a CEO role, I think out of necessity and for the broader good of the team. But like where I'm happiest, and I think where I'm most effective, is the organizational skills, the project management, the planning, the strategy across the team, less of the, outward facing, speaking at events, raising money. I had to really learn how to raise money effectively because it just wasn't my strongest suit. And so, startup life has been fun and terrible in all the ways, but I think the personal health is becoming more of a guiding principle that makes me better, whereas for so long it's been, these are like taking time away from the work I felt was needed. So that makes a lot of sense. One of the things that you said kind of resonated with me is like, putting it on yourself. And one of the things that we do when you talk about like planning, and a lot of teams kind of miss this, is we do an annual session, quarterly session, we have a weekly meeting. In the annual session, we really unpack everything, is how I like to think of it. And so we do some prep work, we do a survey, we unpack like where we're at, what's been successful, what's not been successful, what are all the things that we want to do, right? And we lay all that out. And I really try to get everybody to feel comfortable laying out everything they possibly think. And then, after we kind of review everything, kind of call it like an annual review, we start to build that 3-year vision, that 1-year plan, and the next 90-day OKRs. But we also decide all these things that we're not going to do. And I don't know how many times that I've seen this, where a founder or the CEO is laying out all these things that they think they need to do, and they're willing to take it on themselves. And the other leadership team members are like, no, you shouldn't do that. We should just not do that. And they're arguing, we should do this. And they're like, you're not going to ever have time to do that. That's not the most important. And it's freeing for the founder to be able to hear their team tell them, don't waste your time on that. Where they felt like they were doing it for the rest of the team.
I'm going to go yell at my team after this and tell them they need to be better at yelling at me to not do more things. No, I'm just kidding. But the not do things. I mean, I think there's a funny moment when I worked at Citrix. That was a big tech company I was at. And toward the end, when I was leading a team, it was like there was like a theme that's like if you ask Jason, he's gonna say no to everything. And I was like, maybe that's not where I want to be. And then ironically, I don't know if this was related to the word no, but the only letter completely rubbed off from overuse on my laptop was the letter N.
Oh, funny.
And I'm like, am I saying no that often? But it was like, being real here, was never no up front. I always wanted to hear the reason, the why,
right?
Especially in a team I really trust. It's like, they know, I've always said, even for me, my team knows our customer better than me at this point, the ones who talk to them every single day, right? Sales and customer success. And so I'm in constantly though going like, yes, I would love, so we have websites for stores. It could absolutely be better. It should be better. It will be better eventually.
Right.
We can't compete against some of our competitors who do specifically websites really well. But it's like, why isn't that on the roadmap? And it's like, it is on the roadmap, but it's a big no to us doing it this quarter or next.
Yeah.
Because we have a small team, we're gonna build a few sets of things, and we're doing our absolute best to do what the customer needs most, which has been so hard for us because our customers are so different.
Yep.
It's not like we have 10, 20, 50 customers, it's hundreds of individuals. But like, if you don't get good at saying no as a leader, I think you take it all on yourself, or you don't do it, or you get scattered. Either way, all three of those are pretty not great for success.
Yeah, and I think taking an organized approach to like that planning, defining what we're going to do, everything else is what we're not going to do. So I have a lot of teams who are like, hey, can we do that exercise? Like start doing, stop doing, stop, whatever. And I'm like, let's just define what's most important.
Yeah.
And guess what? Everything else is probably a no.
I remember like a story of Steve Jobs where he would, similar idea. You'd come with the ideas and the whiteboard would have 25 things they want to do in the year. And then he would be like, narrow it down to like 15, then narrow it down to 5. And then it would be like, narrow it down to 1. And they're all like, one thing? We're Apple. Like, are you crazy? And I'm sure they did other little things, but who is better in history at focusing and being the literal best at what they do? And who is worth $1 trillion now? It's like, that's impressive. I don't know if I could pull that off right now, one thing, but like, it's such a great example of like, focus.
Yeah, I had a long time running joke I'd use all the time that I'd tell teams that their whiteboards were too big. Your problem is your whiteboards are too big.
Get a smaller whiteboard.
Get a smaller whiteboard. And whatever we can put in the small whiteboard, we're going to do that.
Yeah.
And it's a struggle with teams and individuals because they're not all at the same level. When we actually build like the 3-year vision functionally, what are the functional areas of your business? What are the top 3 objectives?
Yeah.
And let's keep it to the top 3. And then the 1-year plan, same functionally, because every functional area is important. And if it's not important, it shouldn't be on there.
Yeah.
That functional area. What's the top 3 to 5 in your 1-year plan? That's really a forcing mechanism to get focused and to get the whole team focused, but have a 360 view. And some people are really challenged at trying to do that. Some people just are like, no, it has to be these 12 things. And it's like, you need a smaller whiteboard.
Well, I have a whiteboard in my house. Now I'm questioning if it's too big. I thought it was kind of small. It's very long because I could only fit it on the wall that way. But I'll go get a smaller whiteboard. How small are we talking?
Well, it depends how big your organization is, I suppose. All right, so I have one last question for you.
Yeah, I'm ready.
And it's the most important question that you've ever been asked in your life, and I'm so grateful I get to ask you this question. Luckily, you're sitting down. It's more of a scenario. So the scenario is this. You are trapped on a desert island the rest of your life. Now you have food and water and everything that you really need, healthcare, whatever you could think of.
Okay.
The one thing you don't have, there's one thing you don't have, and that is entertainment. There is absolutely no entertainment on this island.
Okay.
But luckily for you, an 80s boombox drifts ashore with unlimited batteries, but you can only bring one album to listen to the rest of your life.
One album?
What are you going to listen to? What are you going to bring? It can be of any genre or decade, even though it's an 80s boombox.
Well, in this day and age, I'm so rarely listening to any singular album. So I'm a hip hop fan.
Okay.
My few favorite artists are in the world of J. Cole, Kendrick. I'd probably have to do the Forest Hills Drive album from J. Cole, or Kendrick Lamar's latest album, which was really good. One of those two. I'll lean J. Cole just because that's who I prefer.
Okay.
and I'll probably regret it later. I wish that I picked something a little more versatile, but that's what I have to go to on gut.
All right. So final answer is J. Cole, what album?
Forest Hills Drive.
All right. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.